you must not just be humble. You got to be vulnerable
Yes.
and be real with yourself to say, you know what? I need someone to help me to diagnose, to assist me to be able to indicate when those channels are again clear. Because let me tell you all, a lot of people don't want that.
It's the spirit in mind. It's the spirit in mind. Keep the spirit in mind.
Been looking at that because we talk about current affairs with faith and mental health perspectives. We've been looking at that with a psycho spiritual lens, if you will, because it's about more than a bridge and a barge. It's about a transition. It's about trauma. It's about the loss of life. It's about loss and bereavement and grief processes and restoration that happens long after. And so we want to continue on that. And Dr. Shepard is going to take us a little further, or I should say, even a little deeper, since we're talking about this bridge in the recovery process, into this subject. All right, Dr. Shepard?
Yes, sir. And so, just a brief recap. And so, as Bishop mentioned, that we experienced here in the city of Baltimore the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge, and we've been looking at how this particular restoration of the bridge really relates to living in the new place, as we found ourselves now in a state where we have to adjust our traffic patterns. We have to adjust some of us our routines home, even how we get to work or even get to various different places because of this major thoroughfare that is no longer present. And one of the things that we've been looking at is how do you move from the restoration process when once you arrive at that new place. And one of the things that we talked about was the different stages. And we utilized three stages that, as I was blessed to be a part of a service where Bishop Robinson was at, talking about healing, strengthening, and stretching. And we looked at these various different stages of how once you get to a new place and how you are ready for the repairs, that you can't just say, all right, the bridge has fallen down and now we're going to repair it. We have to clean up the debris. You got to get in there and you got to get that debris out. And so many times after we've gone through the fight, we've gone through the struggle, the mindset of the person, once they get to that new place, once they have arrived, it's one that requires a time to settle down, a time for healing, and a time for clearing of that space so that the newness can arrive. And so, again, we were just looking at how, in that time, the removal of the debris was so important. The removal of the debris that was on the surface that you could see, and the removal of the debris under the surface. And one of the things that Bishop said last week that really struck me was how the broken bridge caused the brokenness of the vessel, and that the brokenness of the vessel was the brokenness of the Dolly ship. And that really stuck with me. It resonated with me because it shows me how the brokenness that a person can experience can literally be the impetus of the brokenness of someone else. And so that really hit home for me. I want to move to this point and then let Bishop move forward with this. I'm so curious to hear what he has to say. But one of the points that I really didn't get a chance to lift up last time as we were talking about clearing the debris was the sensitivity that it takes when you're cleaning the debris. The sensitivity here was needed because as you're clearing out the channels, there were still bodies that were present. I'll say it again. As we were clearing out the channels, there were still human bodies that were present there. And so we could not forget that as we were clearing out the channels, we could not just go in without having some reference of knowing, and reverence, I should say, of knowing that 6 people lost their lives on that bridge. And at one point, we could not find everyone on everyone at the time that the bridge collapsed. I remember them saying that there was a search and rescue and then it turned from search and recovery. And so it really just stuck with me as I thought about this and thought about the sensitivity that's needed, that needs to be had when we're dealing with these type of matters. When you're dealing with healing, when you're dealing with clearing out the debris, cleaning out the area and space so that you can be strengthened, you gotta have sensitivity and care because there's some bodies that are still there. There's still some things that may not, people may not be willing to share or be even willing to admit because there's really some lives that are have really been affected by the collapse of that particular situation, the collapse of that bridge. So Bishop, yeah, that just really stuck with me. Just how much sensitivity we needed to have with that, and I can appreciate our governor and those first responders really putting that at the forefront as they were going through. I know some people actually have forgotten that there were even one or two more bodies there because it took some weeks before we were able to recover. And so we want people to know there's got to be sensitivity, there's got to be that awareness that when you're clearing out the debris, that there may be some bodies there. Yeah, Bishop, I'm gonna leave it right there.
Yeah, that really speaks to why we're still covering this subject, because it really is exemplary in so many ways, and there's so many learning opportunities and growing opportunities so just from this experience. For example, we like quick fixes. In our culture, we like, is there a pill for that, and can it be better in the morning? But some things are a process because of all of these factors that are involved. So it's no longer perhaps at the top of the news story, but things that are no longer at the top of a news story does not mean that it's not still significant for persons who are going through it. And so you have to think about going under there. You have to think about people, as you said, bodies. There's still casualties that have been collateral damage of all kinds that is still being taken care of. And all of that represents other lives that are affected. And some of us are probably aware, at least I know that in my time of pastoral care and counseling, when you're talking to someone who has lost someone, one of the things you sometimes have to process is how my life has been totally shifted and in a traumatic sense. And wow, everybody just woke up and kind of, eventually the cakes and the pies and the food dishes, the repasts and all those things are over. But the process of rebuilding and finding a new sense of normalcy and all of that is still in process. And so you have to be sensitive to all of those factors. And again, going deep to find out where that stuff is. Because if we don't, we'll relive that. We'll I want to say it this way: if you didn't get what was under the surface and deal with all of that, the bodies, the remains of persons, the souls that were lost, the over 10 tons of stuff that was down there. If you don't deal with that and just start sending shipments through, they'll get caught on the stuff. Then boats will continue, ships will continue to sink, and it'll just become more and more. If I had to use a biblical equivalent of this real quick, I would use John 4 as I was thinking about this today, because Jesus meets a woman at the well. And they even say, the woman even says, this well is deep. So Jesus says, essentially, to get to the chase in our vernacular, he would say, he told her, he said, you're thirsty.
All right.
But your thirst is for something deeper than just this water. And then to exemplify that, he said, we have to break this pattern in essence. You have had 5 husbands, and the one you have now is not your husband. What he's saying is you're thirsty, and it's showing up in your relationships. And if we don't go deeper and deal with some of that stuff, then the pattern of these relationship casualties will continue.
Right.
And so, for what that means is you could join 5 churches and the same issues keep coming up. It might be you. You
Right.
might need to deal with what's under the water.
Right.
You might have, the initial tragedy, was there, but that wasn't dealt with. So you keep reproducing it at the church. If you did 5 different jobs and the issues keep coming up, if you date 5 different people and yet have had the same outcome,
Wow.
it might be that there's some stuff beneath the surface that wasn't sufficiently dealt with in our haste to just get the bridge back up.
Absolutely.
So that's why it's so important to stay here until the passageways can be declared clear. And let me just say this real quick, and then Dr. Shep, please tag in. And sometimes we can't declare ourselves clear. Sometimes you have to have U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and other professional divers and biologists and construction experts to look at the way, and then they give the diagnosis, which comes from the Greek word noskos, which means knowledge, which essentially means I know what is going on here. And so sometimes our efforts to self-medicate and self-diagnose and clear ourselves is a bit premature, if not inept. And so we need someone else oftentimes to say, listen, I've checked you out spiritually, psychologically, psychosocially, and it is now clear for for new ships.
Wow. And that's a humbling experience.
It is, yes.
That's so I can almost feel someone out there saying, wow, Bishop, thank you. You have helped me. But we must also admit that is a humbling experience. And you must not just be humble. You got to be vulnerable and be real with yourself to say, you know what? I need someone to help me to diagnose, to assist me to be able to indicate when those channels are again clear. Because let me tell you all, a lot of people don't want that. I know that just now, again, Bishop has seen it as a pastor, as a clinician. I see it as a physician because people will come in and tell you what they want and what their problem is. And you're sitting there looking like, well, that's not even the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because many times there are certain diagnoses that actually overlap. ADHD and anxiety are 2 of the most common diagnoses that I really have to let people know. Yes, they are real diagnoses, real disorders, but they are not treated the same, but they do look the same. And their source is very different too. And so, thank you, Bishop. And I just want to encourage people out there that you gotta be humble, you gotta be vulnerable, because let's look at this, is that when the ship finally got ready, the dolly that was the source of the bridge collapsing, the dolly could not refloat itself.
Right.
It needed help. And it needed a lot of help. It needed the various persons that Bishop just said, the core army of engineers. When it came time to refloat itself, they had to have tugboats. They had to have various other things to announce when it was ready to be refloated again. And so, it couldn't just move itself again because I just talked about how part of that bridge fell onto the ship, which ended up breaking the ship. And Bishop, that happens a lot. Many times we get broken because someone else's situation broke us. And we think that we can repair ourselves and get right back on up. We find ourselves in the new place. Now, we haven't forgotten where we're at now. We're in this new place, but we find ourselves broken and thinking that we're okay in that new place, not being real with ourselves. And so thank you, Bishop. That was very helpful.
Yeah, and I hope my intention was clear. If not, just let me clarify. That's not to be insulting. It's to really, if you hear my heart, I'm really trying to say, it's okay. All of us need somebody, an accountability circle, a pastor, a psychotherapist, the psychiatrist, or somebody. We need somebody to say, hey, a physician, I feel okay, but let me make sure there are no silent killers.
That's right.
Silent killers are things that don't give symptoms until it's really in advanced stages. And so sometimes we just need to say, I feel great, and make sure it's not just me trying to move on. I want a new boo, to get over the old boo. It's human to kind of, take those avoidance strategies, but it's okay to take a minute to just kind of say, hey, and then call somebody and say, I'm not okay. Or I want to make sure I'm okay. And let's have this conversation and not getting too stressed out about it. Here's something therapists and pastors have in common. Both of us sometimes get frustrated by persons who terminate the treatment processes too soon.
Yes, sir.
It's like you came to 2 sessions.
Right.
You just wanted 2 45, 50-minute sessions to unearth 10, 12, 20 years of traumatic experiences. So give yourself time.
Yes.
and give yourself grace and space to do what you need to do to heal.
And let me tell you too, Bishop, and I was just, and even as I was even working today in one of my jobs today, working with families, and I just told them that once you're able to diagnose and even provide the treatment, many times we see people get worse before they get better. I mean, it's almost without fail. And parents look at me sideways like, what do you mean they're going to get worse? Especially when I'm dealing with children who are anxious and we start medication and we start the various modalities of treatment. And the parents are like, well, I expect for this to happen. I said, well, yes, at some point it will. But I'm letting you know, these children, when you are changing up the patterns and the maladaptive behaviors, and now we're working to correct them, they are not going to go along willingly. That is just not going to happen. They're going to kick and scream, and they're going to say, why do we have to do it this way? Why is this happening this way? And the same thing happens even within adults, even with those who are faith believers. When we recognize that there is a shifting that needs to happen, when there's a shifting in your mindset, when there's a shifting in our behavior, many times we will not go along willingly. And so I hear you out there. It really does take courage. It really does take recognition that it may not feel good for those first couple of weeks, months, maybe even years, Bishop, because as you just laid it out so well, many times there are people who come to us 2 sessions to unearth something that's been going on since their childhood.
Right. Right.
And that's just unrealistic. And you have to give yourself some time to let's clear those channels, be able to clear those pathways, clear your mind. That's really what I am really hung up on. Clear that headspace. So many of us right now are just convoluted in our heads. And I understand. And again, I'm not talking about you or disparaging you, but I understand there's a lot going on in this world right now, and we know that. But we want you to know that we're here to help clear some of those channels for you. We're here to provide some of those recommendations so that you can be able to live your best life through this particular program.
Absolutely, and break that pattern so that the be like the woman at the well. I'm going back to testify now. Some patterns have been broken, and my relationship perspectives are changing. And so, give yourself some space and grace. I know we got to go, and I know we live in a culture that really does like quick fixes and drive-through service and all of that. And I'm not saying that doesn't have its place in certain respects, but when it comes to our healing, be it spirit, soul, or body, give yourself time to let the healing process take place and stay in the process. Stay in it and trust the Lord through it. So listen, I know Dr. Shepherd's going to bring us some final greetings, and we're going to make our way out.
Yeah, and so we just want you to know, yes, we've stayed here, but we also want to talk about ways to strengthen. So look for that as we move forward throughout this month, ways to strengthen yourself. And so I'm excited about that. We're talking about the healing. We're talking about ways to strengthen your mind. Please stay tuned. Please let people know that we are here live in spirit and mind.
And if you need to talk to somebody, talk to them. Let them know. Hey, call your pastor, call your therapist, call a friend, and say, hey, I need some help. Help me work through this. And then join us next time right here on Spirit in Mind.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at Spirit in Mind, and we're also on Instagram at Spirit in Mind Live. Join us next time for a new episode of Spirit in Mind.